So thanks for having me along this morning. And I'll also circulate the slides via Keris afterwards as well. So you can have a copy of those, and feel free to circulate them to anyone else in the network as well that hasn't been able to join today. So if you can just bear with me one moment, and I'll share a quick presentation. If I can, too many windows open. Okay, so yep, my name is David Nicholson. So I work in the community programs team within People's Postcode Lottery. So working specifically on providing funding to groups in Scotland, England and Wales. So I'll give you an overview of what we currently have available, as well as the application process, and hopefully sort of encourage you to make an application and make a better quality application as well. As was mentioned, happy to answer any questions at the end, but also to get your feedback, both on the presentation and the sort of feedback session, but also on what it is you find hard to get funded as an organisation, or sort of any ideas that you have for things that you'd like us to offer in the future. But first of all, just a thanks to any of you that are players of the lottery. After all, it is thanks to your participation that we actually have funds to give away. So players of People's Postcode Lottery provide funding to 20 different trusts. And to date, we've raised over 700 million, I think it's actually over 750 million now, for good causes in Britain and beyond. So obviously that funding is ever increasing, which means we have more and more funding to give to local organisations such as yourselves. We're quite active in Wales, so between Postcode Community Trust and a couple of partnerships, which I'll go into at the end of the presentation, we funded 745 projects within Wales specifically, over £4 million in terms of the value of those awards, and also we're looking and keen to increase that amount in the coming year. Now, you may have applied in the past to the trusts, so there have been some updates this past year in terms of how it's all structured. We now have 6 community trusts. They cover a specific geographic area rather than covering different themes now. So the trust that specifically covers Wales is Postcode Community Trust. So if your organisation is looking to carry out activities in Wales, then this would be the trust to apply to. If you do happen to do work elsewhere, then you simply apply to the trust for the area that work is happening in. If you do work across different areas, then you apply sort of based on where you're headquartered or based. But if you want to discuss sort of the ins and outs of that, then that's definitely something you can get in touch with us to find out which would be the most appropriate trust to apply to. But assuming most of you are doing work in the local area, therefore the community trust is the best one to apply to. We still do have themes, but each trust has the same 8 themes now. So you can hopefully see that there's quite a, well, we think there's quite a good spread in different themes there. Really important that your organisation links to one of these themes if you're applying for core funding, or the activities that you're looking to do links to one of them if you're looking for more project-based funding. So you can see spread there from improving mental well-being, which has been a very popular one over the past 6 months. Not unsurprisingly, with the impact that the sort of COVID lockdowns have been having, a lot of organisations are doing projects that in one way or another are looking to support people in their mental health. But looking to, hopefully move to things being opened up, increasing community access to outdoor space, great one to get people out and about now that things are opening up, and quite a few bits and pieces there in between. So hopefully there's one theme that will be of interest to you and your organisation. In terms of what's available, we offer grants between £500 and up to a maximum of £20,000. If you're looking for more than £2,000, you have to be registered with the Charity Commission and have your own specific charity number. But if you're a community interest company or a constituted community group, then you can apply for anything between £500 and £2,000. Another big change that we've made this year that I sort of mentioned previously was that we now offer core costs as well as project costs. And that's really thanks to sort of feedback that we've got from some sessions such as this, that organisations have been finding core costs particularly hard to get hold of. So we now offer either a combination of core and project costs, or you can apply specifically for core or project costs, whichever is most suited to your needs. We have introduced an income cap this year as well, and that's really based on the sort of impact that we think the maximum £20,000 that we offer is going to have on organisations. So it's based on your most recent financial year, so you have to have an income below £1 million. We do have that sort of second cap in there, which is based on sort of levels of interest, but certainly within Wales we've not had to apply that cap, so as long as you have an income below £1 million, then you should be okay to apply. In terms of the project term, we allow activities up to a period of 12 months. You don't have to start straight away, so if you're applying now, you would probably, if you're successful, be awarded or get the funding certainly by the end of September. You don't have to start immediately. You can start in January next year and then still have a 12-month period to use the funds. So a bit of flexibility there that we hope will be useful. In terms of what costs we actually support, this is a general list of things that we do support, but in terms of some things that we don't, I'll go through that in a second, but also the funding guide is a great place to start. That's available on the website and gives you a good overview of all the steps within the application process, but also the key things that we do and don't fund. But as I mentioned previously, just to reiterate that we're happy to cover core costs as well now. So you know, those rent costs, or you know, even if you have a chief executive that gets paid, we're happy to cover costs such as those. You know, just the more mundane things like rent and utilities as well. So bear that in mind. Equipment is always a popular one, so we don't have a cap. You know, some organisations have a percentage cap of the overall request for equipment, but you can apply for whatever equipment you deem necessary. The one caveat is that if it's over £1,000 in value for one single item, we require you to provide a quote, and it just has to be one quote rather than three, which is quite standard. Staffing costs is something that we're happy to cover. Again, whether it's project-based staff or core staff, it's up to you. And again, there's no sort of limit in terms of the proportion of request. So if you have a key staff member that you're looking to get funded for the next year, then we're happy to cover that cost. Training for both staff and volunteers can be included as well, and factoring in travel expenses. Not that there's a lot of travel been happening in the past year. Volunteer expenses as well. So one thing we'd say with this is be clear on what the volunteer expenses are. So rather than simply just putting in volunteer expenses as the cost item, elaborate a bit more, tell us whether it's for travel expenses or training, and that sort of thing, just so we get a clear picture of exactly what it is you're looking to spend the funding on. Marketing costs is another one that we're more than happy to cover the cost of, whether that's traditional leaflets and flyers, or whether it's you know, paid social media posts and things as well. I'm happy to help you spread the word about the work that you're doing. So be sure to factor that in as well. And don't forget those running costs. So, you know, I mentioned before about rent and utilities, but things like insurance as well. We're happy to cover that cost. We know it's not the most exciting thing to be putting an application in for, but we know that it is key to running good projects and giving sort of reassurance that you're a well-run organisation. So happy to cover those and a few more things in between. In terms of the process, we've tried to keep it as straightforward as possible. So again, for those of you that have applied to our trusts before, you may see some changes here. It's just a one-stage process now. So it's an online application form. We will ask a few questions that will go into a bit more detail in the next slide. So, this is the one opportunity you have essentially to sell your proposal to us. So, the decision is made on the information that you provide in this application form. So please make sure that you've been as detailed and as clear as possible. The supporting documentation that we require at the point of application is a copy of your governing document, and please make sure that it's been signed as well. So whether it's the governing document itself or a memorandum of association, it's really important that we have that sort of verification that those documents have been sort of actually taken on board by the organisation. We also require a copy of your most recent set of accounts. And again, please ensure that they've been signed off by trustees, and if they've been externally examined or audited, that they have been signed off by the auditor or examiner. We're happy to support brand new organisations as well. So we know that for new organisations, you won't necessarily have a full set of accounts for the past year. So what we ask you to submit there is a full forecast for a 12-month period. So income and expenditure, sort of detailed as to where the income is proposed to come from and what your proposed outgoings are as well. So just to give us an idea of where the funding request to us fits with your plans for the year. As I mentioned, quotes are only required for individual sort of physical items over £1,000. So essentially those big ticket items, just to make sure that you have fully costed them. And then any other costs over £1,000, such as staff members or things like that, we don't require a quote for. We do ask for details of 2 people that you'd like to nominate as referees. So these should be organisations or people that you've worked with in a professional capacity. So that could be the likes of cael, if you have a good relationship with them. It could be a previous funder, it could be a local councillor or MP. And essentially we'll ask a couple of fairly straightforward questions to them just to check that they have heard of your organisation and that the main contact that's made the application to us is known as a representative of your organisation as well. So it's really one of the first steps in our due diligence process to ensure that the players of the lottery, that their funding is going to sort of verified organisations. So in terms of the questions that are included in the application form, again, we've tried to keep it as simple and straightforward and only ask questions that we sort of really need to. So look for a short description of your organisation. So sort of be prepared with those short and snappy synopsises of what your organisation does. And then we ask what you want to spend the funding on. So make sure that you include in there what you want to purchase and also what that will enable you to do. So if you're looking to purchase sports equipment for a project about enabling participation in physical activity, tell us what equipment you want to purchase, but also what activities that will then lead to, so detailing how often those activities are going to happen and with what your target audience is as well. The next key bit is, how do you know your project is needed? So is it from a result of some research that you've done locally, so through focus groups or questionnaires or requests coming in to your organisation, or is it based on more national research that you've identified as being relevant to your sort of locality as well? Let us know why you've come to the point of looking to do these activities. And then what difference will the funding make? So what's the benefit going to be to the people that are participating or engaging in your services? Have you got plans on how you're going to measure that impact? And what's going to be the long-term sort of benefit to those people as well? So make sure that you've thought that through and let us know the great work that you're going to be doing. Beneficiary numbers is one we just simply ask for a figure. We don't have a preference for a large number of beneficiaries over a smaller number. We don't score specifically on the number being higher. Really look for it to be in keeping with the level of funding that you're requesting and with the sort of scope of the activities that you're looking to do as well. So sort of have a think about what a realistic number is going to be. Cost breakdown, so be as clear and sort of specific as possible. So as I mentioned with the volunteer costs, we look for something a bit more detailed than just a general sort of high level overhead. So we don't want to see things like staff costs. What we want to see is individual staff members as a different sort of line item with their job title, how many hours that they're going to be supported by this funding, and for equipment, be specific about what equipment is that you're getting as well. So rather than just sports equipment, let us know what it is as well. So I think you get about 20 or 25 different line items that you can put in on the form. So please make sure that you use as many of them as is appropriate as well, just so we get again that clear picture of what cost you're looking to get supported and how that links to the activities that you told us about earlier on in the application. In terms of when you can apply, again this year we've changed the structure of this, so we now open every month. So we open on the first working day of each month. So August the 2nd will be the next opportunity that you can apply. We're running up until and including October this year, so there's still a few months to go. And in terms of how long we stay open, we either stay open until the 15th working day of the month or until we've reached 3 times our monthly budget, which is quite a hard concept, I guess, to grasp in terms of how long that will be open for. But what would say in the case of Postcode Community Trust in Wales, we've stayed open until the 15th of the month in every month to date. So you'll have, I'd imagine, 2 weeks to apply each month. So hopefully that will give you plenty of time to get your application ready. You apply via the Trust website. So this one also is showing Postcode Neighbourhood Trust, but it's the same layout for Postcode Community Trust. The funding guide is there as well, so I'd really recommend that you have a good read through that in advance of making an application, because if you, for instance, include an item in there that we don't fund, it's not a case that we remove that from your application. It unfortunately invalidates your whole application. So just do make sure that you don't mistakenly put something in there that we can't support. Once you've made an application and you've submitted it, you get a confirmation email with a copy of your application as well. So that should hopefully give the assurance that we've received your application. And then we're looking at about an 8-week turnaround from the point of application to hearing the result of your application to us. So as always, there's a few things that we don't fund, or a few organisations that we don't fund as well. So statutory bodies, so we consider that to be things like local authorities, NHS Foundation trusts. We also don't fund individual people applying or commercial businesses. So we do allow applications from companies as long as they are registered as not for profit and have an asset lock in their governing document. We don't fund medical equipment, staff, research or treatment. This is something that there can be a bit of grey area, especially around things like counselling. We have and will support counselling services, but anything in a more sort of clinical setting, we don't offer funding for. So if that is something that you're looking to get funding for, then please get in touch and we can discuss the sort of ins and outs of what it is you're looking to do. We don't fund any overseas work or any organisations that are based overseas. So the organisation itself has to be registered with the Charity Commission if it's a charity or a company's house, or just a constituted group based in Wales in this instance. But we don't fund any work that you may be doing overseas as well. We do know that some organisations do a bit of both, which is fine, just as long as the activities you're looking to get funded are based in Wales. We'll be happy to consider that. Promotion of religion is something that we also do not fund. That doesn't rule out any religious organisations applying. Again, we have done and will continue to support work that, likes of synagogues, churches, mosques are doing in the wider community, such as food banks and pastoral care and things, as long as the objects of the organisation do have something more than just the promotion of religion as being their sort of reason for operating, and that the costs are clear that it is just for that additional community work that you're looking for funding for. And we don't fund through Postcode Community Trust, we don't fund schools, PTAs, nurseries, colleges or universities, but we'll touch on a couple of our partnership programs which could support some of those schools, PTs and nurseries. And as I mentioned before, sort of more comprehensive details of exclusions and what we do support is available in the funding guide. I'll just give you sort of a few sort of hints and tips, I guess. There's quite a few things that we see in applications that make applications ineligible. So again, as I mentioned before, it's really key that there's a fit with one of the 8 trust themes. So do have a look at those. We only ask you to pick one. So again, if you sort of do work that covers more than one of those themes, please pick the one that has the strongest link. And just to reiterate, if you are looking for more than £2,000, you must be a fully registered charity in your own right. And as I mentioned before, if you do put in something in the cost section that we don't fund, we can't remove that. It just invalidates your full application. So yeah, just to summarise, really suggest that you have a look at that funding guide first off. In the application, you should really be clear of what you want to do, as well as how you're going to do it. And we know that some of you might be doing fairly technical projects, so please use simple language, because we're looking at 400 or 500 applications on a monthly basis across quite a wide range of themes. Unfortunately, we're not experts in everything, so please, where possible, avoid using abbreviations and technical language, or make it clear as to what you're doing. And again, just probably a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but break down those costs into nice, clear line items and make it really evident what it is you're actually looking to purchase. And if you do have any questions at any point, you can get in touch. The contact details are at the end of the presentation, so you'll get a copy of those. So you can get in touch via email or phone and discuss your application in advance, and we can sort of let you know if you're on the right track in terms of the information that you're looking to put in. But unfortunately, we know that not everyone is successful in their application, so we do provide bespoke feedback to every unsuccessful applicant as a matter of course. So when you get your email that says that unfortunately you haven't been successful, we give you a couple of points on potential improvements for future applications. You're welcome to reapply the following month once applications open again. And if you want a bit more sort of in-depth feedback, then again, I'm happy for you to get in touch to request that. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got a couple of different partnership programs which we fund, which potentially give you a couple of alternative options for applying for funding as well. So the first one is the local school nature grants program, which is run by an organisation called Learning Through Landscapes. So this is open to schools, including pupil referral units, but new for this year, we've also added in preschools and nurseries to this as well. So while they're not eligible to apply for the main pot of funding, if they're looking to do those sort of really engaging and fun outdoor learning experience style sort of classes, then they can apply for up to £500 worth of equipment, as well as training to approximately the same value. And that's all delivered by Learning Through Landscapes. So these things cover things like den building, fire making is quite a popular one as well, sort of investigating rock pools and ponds and things like that. So again, those are really fun and engaging activities that usually require quite a bit of equipment, which also schools will struggle to source the funding for. But Learning to Landscapes can be a great opportunity to apply for those more nature-based themes from the 8. Second up, we have the Magic Little Grants programme, which is delivered by Local Giving. So this isn't specific to schools. This is open to smaller charities and community organisations. Again, it's a £500 grant, and you get to stipulate, what project you want to do, alongside it fits alongside the same 8 themes as the main pot of funding. There's a very short application form and quite a quick turnaround and quite a good success rate as well compared to the trust for the main parts. And it's open on a monthly basis as well. And for both of these partnership programs, you apply via the relevant partners' own website as well. One of the sort of additional benefits of the Magic Little Grants programme is you get a year's membership of Local Giving if you're successful as well. So that helps you do further fundraising, further promotion of your project as well. So it can be a really sort of additional, valuable additional benefit to tap into as well. So that about covers it from me. So hopefully that's given you a bit of insight into what you can apply for, and also some support in making that sort of good quality application. But I guess I'd like to just open it up to questions now. So let me just stop sharing my screen, and then if there's any in the chat function, I can access them as well.
Thanks, David. Yeah, if anyone wants to ask a question, feel free to kind of unmute yourself or write something in the chat. I was just wondering though, if people have applied for the postcode lottery grant in the past, when are they able to reapply?
Yeah, so if you've been successful in an application, so you've been grant funded, as long as you have submitted your evaluation form and had that accepted, you're free to apply again. So essentially you can't have funding running concurrently with another application or grant. So we know that over the past year, a lot of timescales have changed. So if you're a current grantee and you've spent the money quicker, or need to spend it on something different, then you can certainly get in touch and we can look at reviewing what we have on file for you. Because yeah, the best laid plans have certainly gone to waste over the past year. Just to follow up on that, if you've applied previously and been unsuccessful, there's no sort of cooling off period or anything like that. You can apply to the next available sort of month that we're open.
Great. Well, we've had a question in the chat from Lorna, and she's asking, if you have a Magic Little grant, can you also apply for the postcode lottery?
Unfortunately not. So if you sort of have an active Magic Little grant at the moment, you'd have to similarly sort of finish that one and provide your evaluation before you can apply for a Postcode Community Trust grant as well.
Is that the same for the school's outdoor learning grant as well?
No, essentially because schools can't apply to the funding, there's some barrier, but yeah.
Can I ask, do you have like do you have like a blueprint for good applications? So this would be the first one that we'd be thinking of putting in, and I'd love I'd love to think that we could nail it. Do you have a sort of like a best practice template?
Yeah,
literally a sort of a winner.
We don't, but what we'd be happy to do is if you have a draft one, because the application questions are available as a Word document on the website, so you can download that. And whether you're working as part of a committee to put this application in or working individually, you can sort of pre-plan your responses. So we'd be happy for you to send that in to us and we can have a look over that. Or I don't know if perhaps that's something, Keris, that you could sort of provide support with as well, just in your sort of experience with the supporting organisations as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can support groups with. kind of any sort of grant applications really. We've had another question in the chat, which is, do you have samples of successful projects on the website?
We do have a few. Yep, it's something that my colleague Enrique is actually currently working on. So with, I guess, with the change in structure of the trusts as well, we're having to review which ones are appropriate, because previously Postcode Community Trust was specifically looking at 2 of the 8 themes, and those projects maybe wouldn't have been in Wales. So just to avoid confusion, we want to make sure that the examples in the Postcode Community Trust website are now specific to Wales as well. But what we'd say is that if you're looking for an example that is similar to what you're looking to do, then don't worry if there isn't one on the website, because we have supported such a wide variety of projects, and even if 2 projects are going for the same theme, they can be doing it in a very, very different way as well. So again, if you're looking to talk through your proposal, we'd be happy to do that on a one-to-one basis.
Could I ask a couple of questions? I've written down a few little lists actually. You said that and I know your guidance says you support core and project, or you consider core and project costs. Do you know roughly what percentage of your successful applications are core versus project?
Yeah, so what I would say is we currently see the overwhelming majority of project or proposals includes project costs to some degree. So whether that's project costs alone or project and core costs. We don't assess core or project applications any differently. So, there's no preference for one over the other. And the success rate is roughly the same. There's only a small percentage of difference between the success rate for a core proposal and a project proposal. I think what we have seen is that a purely core proposal can be a bit of almost a harder sell to sort of write about it in a really charismatic and enthusiastic way. And, if you're just looking for gas and electricity costs to be covered, it's quite hard to sort of sell that. But what I would say is we'd be looking for you to tell us what that enables you to do. So, if it's keeping your building open, that enables you to do X, Y, and Z relating to the theme. So yeah, we very little in terms of the difference in percentage of successful applications between core.
Okay. My next question is about continuation funding. So would you consider funding existing projects?
Yep, yeah, we've no qualms about supporting activities that have proven to be successful. We know it's something that some funders don't do, but yeah, why reinvent the wheel if you've got something that's already successful? So yeah, more than happy to do that. And what I would say on that is that we know there's some confusion or some different interpretations of what core and project costs are. So for us, core costs are those that are not related to the activities that you're carrying out. So this specific engagement with your service users, for example. So it isn't always the case that a staff member is core costs. If that staff member is specifically engaging with your beneficiaries, running sessions or even project managing sessions, then we would see that as a project cost. A core cost is something that no matter what activities you're looking to carry out is always needed. So, if it's rent for the whole organization, if it's the chief executive, if it's your insurance, then that's what we consider a core cost. Just to sort of clarify on that, because we do often get applications coming in that, because we ask you to specify what it is you're asking for in terms of core or project. The application for core costs, but then they'll talk about their project staff. So just be wary of sort of, I guess, our interpretation of what core and project is.
Okay, and I've got a final one, and then I'll let other people have a go. Would you consider match-funded projects as well? Do you look at them any differently?
No, so there is a sort of specific question about that in the application, where we ask, is the funding that you're requesting from us enough to cover the full costs of the activities? If it's not, then where are you proposing to get other funding from? And again, we don't really score it any differently. We just want to know that you have considered the sort of full costs of the project. You don't have to have secured that funding as well. So, we know that we can be part of a jigsaw of applications. So we just ask you to sort of basically say that, you've got applications in with X, Y, and Z, and if possible, put in what your contingency is, so that, whether you're going to reduce the project term or you would reduce the number of beneficiaries if one of the jigsaw pieces wasn't successful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I can see there's a question in the chat from Nikki about the current success rate. It varies quite a bit between the 6 different trusts, but for Postcode Community Trust, we're actually looking on a monthly basis a success rate of between 50 and 60%. And that's because, interestingly, the level of interest or the level of applications that we've seen from Wales compared to other trust areas is actually quite low. So it could certainly be worth your while putting in an application. So if it's good quality, then it stands a good chance of being successful. And then question from Lorna, have we got a certain amount of funding allocated for Wales, or is it just all one big pot? So it's very much that we have a certain amount of funding for Wales. Just to explain how the lottery works, but not in too much detail because it's quite long and complicated. So the Postcode lottery is actually 20 different lotteries. So there's daily draws, and each day one of the trusts receives all the sort of funding. So Postcode Community Trust gets allocated a certain amount of money from the tickets that are played every month, and that is solely for organisations in Wales. So there's no transfer. If, as I said, the level of interest has been slightly lower in Wales than other places, we don't then transfer money from Postcode Community Trust to other areas. That will just be sort of rolled over for future use in Wales. So the community trusts in total, I think we budgeted for about £17 million this year. Postcode Community Trust is roughly 1/6 of that, but it does vary slightly depending on the tickets that are played on a monthly basis, and the ticket price does change as well. So there's very much a specific amount of money for Wales. Okay.
Can I just ask a question? You said you've got the applications is currently open each month, so you've got August, September, October. What will happen after October? Are you going to continue monthly applications, just encourage more applications from Wales, or will it go back to the twice yearly I think you had before?
Yeah, it was twice yearly before. It's still to be decided, but I think we found that moving to monthly has been quite successful in terms of us being able to manage the workload and also the increased flexibility for applicants. So I guess our initial thoughts are that we will open again in February and work on a monthly basis for 2022. But that's still to be confirmed, but likely to match this year in terms of the format very closely.
Are there any other final questions? No? Well, thank you very much, David. It's very...
Well, actually, sorry, Kes, if it's possible, could I ask a couple of questions to the participants? As I mentioned, we like to get feedback, and the move to offering core funding is largely based on the feedback that we've got from these such sessions. So I was wondering if there was anything that you as an organisation have been sort of perennially finding really hard to get funding for, or anything that you would like PPL to be offering from its community trusts that we don't currently offer. So I'll open it up to you, but obviously can't guarantee that your requests will be enacted, but can certainly help build a picture of what the demand is out there in the community.
I'll go again. I think certainly from the answers you've given, you're pretty much offering the things that other funders don't. So continuation funding for existing projects, core costs, and the match funding without having secured the match funding, because they're the ones that most funders say you have to have it all in place, you have to have this, you have to have that, and it won't be considered otherwise. So yeah, for me, you're there. We just need to put the applications in there.
Excellent. Sorry, Nikki, were you going to comment?
I was going to say, I really don't feel equipped to answer that at this stage, having not applied for anything yet, but I can, I think there's lots of flexibility in there. Well, it started, it's almost like a firework going off in my head to think, oh wow, okay, so we could, it's really exciting to think that there are some potential solutions in this that I genuinely had no idea would be available to us. So that's fab.
Can I just say that sometimes I get the feeling that sometimes it's the issue that you're trying to cover as well, that sometimes you think that that's not grabbing the interest of the funders, and the fitting into themes, that's always quite a challenge. I find that's quite a challenge to say, right, which theme does this, because quite a few funders are going along the theme angle. So I do find that's quite a challenge sometimes, and the issue. Yeah,
I mean, I guess one bit just to explain why we have those themes, it's to link into the objects that the trust has, because the trust itself is a charity registered with the Charity Commission, or perhaps Oscar. So we have to sort of outline what sort of projects that we're looking to fund as well. And within that, though, there is flexibility for us to look at those themes. So if you think that there's any themes that we're currently not covering that we should be, then we'd be happy to get that feedback as well, because the themes did change this year, and I guess one of the main changes was a focus from general well-being to mental well-being, as a result of the sort of, even at the early stages, the impact of COVID on people. So yeah, if you're finding that there's a real struggle to find a theme that is a good fit for you, then please do sort of let us know, and perhaps make some suggestions, and we can see if there's a bit of room for either change or an additional theme to be added in there. One thing that often comes up as a request is multi-year funding. So obviously our current restriction is that we'll fund up to a 12-month period of activities, so anything from 1 day up to 12 months. What sort of value do you as an organisation put on multi-year funding, and what do you consider to be an optimal level of multi-year funding? Or even back from Keris and the rest of the team at Cavo on sort of the demand for multi-year funding, or the benefit of having that on offer would be good.
Well, I think multi-year funding is really good, and it's that security, isn't it? So if you know you've got funding for say 2 years or 3 years, you can plan long term then, can't you, in a way? Whereas the one year is quite tight, but it's still helpful. Any funding is really helpful, but I think multi-year funding is even stronger support for the work you're trying to do.
And what would be That's an optimal level.
I think I'm looking at, say, three-year funding. I think that's a good cycle. But...
Thanks, Lauren.
I think another benefit of that is recruitment of staff, because you can actually give, you can give a kind of meaningful length of period if you're employing somebody for a specific project. It's I know some of the things that would put me off a 9-month job, for example. If you could see that that's got 2 or 3 years to run as a project, then that's that encourages people to apply.
Yes, that's a very good point.
I agree with both Nikki and Lorna that multi-year funding is kind of like the holy grail, because everyone's into the innovation, the short term, the what's new, what's different, and it comes back to the sort of retention of the skilled staff. Once you've trained them up, you've paid all that money to get them to the position where they're doing their job well, successfully, and to a high standard. And then, are they going to stay? Are we going to get funding to keep them? And yeah, if we can go again, this between the 1 and the 3 years is good. 5 years is like long-term strategic, so there's not many that's going to do that. But 3 years is a nice sort of medium-term level.
Excellent, thanks. And what's people's
The other
thoughts
thing
on...
is, sorry, can I just say the other thing is, as users of projects, especially when it comes to mental health, there's nothing worse than the project finishing, when it's actually it's delivered some positive benefits for those we're trying to help and support, and that has to finish because the funding is finished. I think holistically, if we look at this holistically, there are many gainers in the idea of rolling it on for more than 1 year.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot of resource goes into applying for applications, and if it's just year on year, it's almost a case of secure the funding and then apply immediately for further funding. And one last question for me on that. Would people be open to the concept of either, if you're able to apply for longer term funding, only being able to apply for smaller amounts, so per year, so rather than being able to apply for £20,000 for 3 years in a row, maybe having that capped at £10,000 or £15,000, but having that secured for 3 years, or it being tapered, so starting with £20,000 in year 1, year 2 being 15, and year 3 being 10, for example. Examples of what we want to avoid is that organisations become dependent on us as a funder as well. So just wonder what your thoughts on that concept was.
I don't think the tapering idea would be a preferred option, because realistically project costs aren't going to decrease. So even if we've got that secured funding for the terms, let's say 3 years, we're going to have to start seeking match funding in year 2 and 3. And that wouldn't necessarily give us the sort of breathing space to potentially develop a larger application to a longer term fund to take over, if it's a successful project. I think that having the smaller amount potentially for a longer period would be, at least it's a more stable, secure sort of resource, rather than having it tapered. But that's just our opinion.
Okay, that's great, thanks. Okay, and if you do have some thoughts at a later point, then feel free to get in touch and let us know as well, because I'm aware by myself that sometimes it will just pop into my head at a later point. So happy to hear.
Can I just ask a question? Read the tapering. I know you just threw it out as a thought, but would the tapering be based on evidence of the project that you applied for working effectively? Would it be based on reports being submitted and then, oh, this project's good, or?
I'd imagine not. So our initial thoughts are that you would apply for the amounts upfront for a 3-year basis, and it's not that we would make a decision on how much you get in year 2 after we see the evidence of year 1, because again, sort of going back to what Rebecca said, that would lead to you having to scrabble around for match funding at short notice. So it would potentially be dependent on you submitting an interim report at end of year 1, and we then release the second tranche of funding, and then same for year 2. But it wouldn't be that we would make a decision on what your second year award would be after that first year. It would you'd be able to hopefully plan in the longer term from the outset as to what you're getting. Okay. So yeah, thanks guys. Just yeah, always good to get some feedback and help us develop what we're offering next year.
Yeah, no problem, David. Well, thanks for coming today and presenting, and I feel like we've had some really interesting discussions. So yeah, thanks again. Diolch pawb am dod. Thanks everyone for coming, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day in the sunshine.
Thanks everyone, and yeah, hope to see some applications coming in the next month or 2.
All right, I'll send through the details, your contact details and the recording and everything, so everyone will have that if they need.
Okay, thanks very much. Bye everyone. Enjoy.
Bye bye.